In the modern and imposing metropolis, where large companies stood out on the horizon, Excellence Industries was a true powerhouse in the financial sector. Its glass walls reflected the sky and the lights of the city, symbolizing its power and influence. At the top of this structure was Mark Sullivan, the company's chief operating officer. With his rigid posture and watchful eye, Mark believed he was the last bastion of success in the corporate world. His way of working was a mixture of coolness and efficiency. From an early age, Mark learned that success required much more than simple financial ability. He knew that social status was just as important as numbers in a report. For him, a person's appearance, education, and track record spoke louder than anything else. He liked to surround himself with people who shared his elitist view of life. That morning, like any other, Mark was sitting in his immaculate office, his impeccable suit making him look even more untouchable. His secretary, Megan, entered the room, her gaze servile and always attentive to what her boss wanted. "Mark, there's a couple at reception asking to see you. Their names are Caitlin and Michael, and they're here for a meeting. I don't know exactly what it's about, but I'm not sure they're the right profile. What should I do?" Mark looked at her with an expression of boredom. He knew exactly what to do. "Megan, tell them I'm busy. We can't waste time on people who don't have the necessary experience to be here. I don't think they're worth having." Megan hesitated for a moment, but loyalty to her boss immediately made her leave the room to pass on the message. She knew that Mark didn't like getting involved with anyone who didn't share his narrow view of society. So when she saw the couple at the reception, something in their plain faces made her doubt the value of that meeting. She didn't know who they were, but by the look of them, Caitlin and Michael didn't seem to fit the profile that Mark demanded. The couple sat waiting anxiously, unaware that they were about to be ignored for a decision based not on their skills or qualities, but on someone's simple view of who deserved to be there. As the couple waited, time seemed to pass more slowly for them than for the others around them. Caitlin, a 28-year-old woman, wore an elegant, simple business dress, but with the posture of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. Michael, her fiancé, stood next to her in his well-tailored suit, looking attentive but not arrogant. They were successful people, but they saw no need to flaunt it. Their confidence came from what they had achieved over the years and from their experience in the market. But in those first few minutes of waiting, Caitlin felt an unease that she couldn't shake. She knew something was wrong, but she couldn't pinpoint exactly what. They were the investors behind a major technology project, and they had the power to turn any company into what they wanted. But right now, they were being treated as invisible. The conversation with Megan was brief. It wasn't long before the secretary came back to tell them that Mark wouldn't be seeing them at the moment. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Mark is busy. He asked us to reschedule." Caitlin wasn't put off by the secretary's rudeness. She stood up calmly and looked at Michael, who just nodded. It was clear to both of them that if they had to be patient, they could also be bold. "Megan, I understand that Mr. Mark has a busy schedule, but we would like to be seen now. We believe that what we have to offer could be of great value to the company. If you could, please let him know we're available." Megan reluctantly went back to Mark's office. She knew how much her boss hated being interrupted, but the couple's insistence made her uncomfortable. She felt that something wasn't right, but her loyalty to her boss spoke louder. When she entered Mark's office, he was already finishing a call. When he saw her worried look, he knew what was coming next. "Megan, what is it?" She hesitated for a moment, then said carefully, "They asked to be picked up immediately. They said they believed they had a valuable opportunity for the company." "I don't know what that means, but they're insistent." Mark grimaced. He hated interruptions. He wasn't interested in anyone who didn't meet his criteria. So he ignored what she had said and asked firmly, "Tell them to set up a new meeting. They don't fit our profile." However, Megan felt under pressure. When she left the room, she decided to do something she didn't usually do. She decided to give the couple a chance. When she returned to reception, she gave Caitlin and Michael the message, but with a furtive glance, she said, "It's okay to wait a little longer if you wish." With that, the couple settled into a corner of the reception area, in no hurry to leave. They knew what they were doing there. They weren't the ones who needed Mark. He was the one who needed them. What he didn't know was that, in a world where power was constantly on the move, his old-fashioned beliefs were about to be brutally shattered. When Mark's door finally opened and he appeared, his gaze immediately went to the couple. Not wanting to waste any time, he got straight to the point. "Miss Caitlin, Michael, I assume you're here looking for an opportunity. But I need you to know, our company has no time to waste on dubious partnerships. If you don't have a proven track record of success, this is not the place for you." Mark's arrogance was at its peak, but Caitlin, with a calm look and a controlled smile, responded without hesitation. "Mr. Mark, believe me, what we have to offer is not just a partnership. We are the founders of one of the largest technology investment funds, and we believe that your company could benefit immensely from our help. What you don't know is that we are in a much more influential position than you realize." Mark looked at her skeptically. He didn't believe her words. As far as he was concerned, no one could have the same authority as him without following their own criteria. But before he could continue the conversation with any more contempt, the door to his office opened again. Victor Carrington, one of the most powerful investors he had ever met, entered the room. He greeted Caitlin and Michael with a genuine smile. Victor's smile wasn't just a friendly greeting. He was a man who had an entire empire to his name. Mark stopped in place, his eyes wide. He didn't know how to react. Caitlin and Michael, those he had despised, were the ones actually responsible for the investments in one of the most profitable companies in the country. The shock was instantaneous. Victor, realizing what was happening, decided to put it delicately. "Mark, you've just missed the chance of a lifetime. Caitlin and Michael are the greatest technology investors the country has ever seen. What you haven't understood is that success isn't only measured by a person's pedigree, but by their vision of the world." Mark, stunned, tried to explain himself, but knew that his words couldn't erase the mistake he had made. Mark was paralyzed. His hands were sweating, and his face was starting to flush. The weight of the situation, which he had not understood until then, was now hitting him with full force. Caitlin and Michael, the two successful investors, were in front of him, while Victor Carrington, a name he knew very well, was there to do what Mark never imagined he would do: show how small and uninformed he had been. Victor, with his calm smile, looked at Mark and, in a tone that bordered on disdain, continued, "Mark, you believe that success comes from where you were born, where you studied, or who you know. But you are very wrong. True power lies in the vision of those who take risks, of those who invest in ideas that can transform the world. And Caitlin and Michael have a vision that can revolutionize this company. If you can't see that, then you are not the leader you think you are." Mark, still trying to maintain control, took a deep breath. He wanted to respond, but he didn't know what to say. The pit in his stomach was growing with each passing second. Victor's words made him realize the magnitude of the mistake he had made. He had thought he could simply ignore people like Caitlin and Michael based on what he considered to be the standards of success. Now he was cornered, with no plausible excuse. Caitlin, sensing Mark's discomfort, took her time to seize the moment. Instead, she remained silent for a few seconds, letting the tension build. She knew she had the power in the situation, but she wanted Mark to understand that the problem wasn't simply what he didn't know about her and Michael, but what he didn't know about the world around them. She was the first to break the silence. "Mark, what we want is not an apology or a show of regret. What we want is to show you in this company how things can be different. Michael and I are not just investors. We are visionaries, and that's what we bring to the table. If you want to continue being part of this vision, great. If not, you can move out of the way." Michael, who had been silent until then, looked at Mark steadily. He was in no hurry. Patience was his greatest ally. "Mark, you have two choices now. You can either bow down to the pride and narrow-mindedness that keeps you stuck in an outdated idea of success, or you can open your eyes to the future we are offering you. The choice is yours." Mark felt the weight of Michael's words. He knew his pride had been hurt, but he also knew that if he made the wrong decision now, he could lose much more than just this meeting. Excellence Industries was not a small company. Its shareholders, its influence, everything was at stake. But he didn't know if he was ready to change his thinking. He had been shaped by a system that valued the wrong things. Change didn't come easily to him. But Victor, sensing Mark's hesitation, walked over and put a hand on his shoulder. "Mark, doubt is making you waver, but you know what you must do. Don't get stuck in a narrow-minded vision. Sometimes it's necessary to look beyond our own prejudices and see what's really at stake." Caitlin, seeing that Mark was beginning to understand, added with a subtle smile, "We don't want to be responsible for a change that you're not ready to make. We're just giving you an opportunity to see beyond your own reflection." Mark, now fully aware of the gravity of the situation, looked at the two investors and finally said, in a voice softer than he imagined it could be, "I get it." It was a simple acknowledgement, but for Mark, it was the first step on a long path. He didn't know if he would be able to truly change, but at that moment, he knew he had to try. In the days that followed, Mark reflected deeply on everything that had happened. He couldn't shake the impact of Caitlin, Michael, and Victor's words from his mind. The insecurities he had felt about his own role in the company began to surface, but at the same time, a spark of curiosity was ignited within him. He began to realize that his vision of success no longer held true in today's world. He had limited himself, trapped in archaic concepts of class, race, and status. Mark's decision to start changing wasn't an immediate one. Like many leaders of large companies, he had been trapped in a web of behaviors that he had somehow found comfortable. But reality was no longer comfortable. He could no longer ignore the potential that existed in the people he had so arrogantly disregarded. He began to look at the dynamics of his company differently, looking for talent and opportunities that he had previously overlooked. Mark began to wonder if he could learn from Caitlin and Michael, if he could expand his horizons beyond what he had previously considered to be right. At the same time, Caitlin and Michael, as they continued their negotiations with the company, maintained a professional demeanor, but never lost sight of their mission. They knew they were here for something bigger than just a simple investment. They were here to break down barriers, to challenge norms, to change the way business was done. Over time, Mark grew closer to Caitlin and Michael. He began to ask questions, seek advice, and open himself up to new ideas. What he didn't know was that this closeness would only be the beginning of a true personal and professional revolution for him. But the path to change would not be easy. As Mark began to challenge his own beliefs, he had to deal with internal and external resistance. His relationships with his co-workers changed, and not everyone was ready to accept him as someone different. Many still saw him as the boss who believed that success was tied to a rigid set of standards. But Mark, once again, was determined to prove that he was willing to change. And as he took small but significant steps, he knew that the world around him was also beginning to change. 6 months after that tense meeting, Excellence Industries was in a new phase. Mark, although he still had much to learn, had become a more conscious leader and more open to change. The relationship with Caitlin and Michael, now a solid partnership, had taken the company to a new level of innovation. Caitlin and Michael's presence became indispensable, and they were no longer seen as outsiders or a threat, but as key elements in the company's evolution. Mark not only accepted them, but learned to respect their vision and, most importantly, he learned that true success lies not in appearances or status, but in the courage to look to the future. To those who have made it to the end of this story, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for your patience and attention. You have embarked with us on this journey that has gone through challenges, prejudices, and transformations. The story of Mark, Caitlin, and Michael is not only a reflection on the importance of seeing beyond appearances and the barriers imposed by society, but also an invitation to introspection. How can each of us learn and grow in the face of adversity? Change often begins silently, almost imperceptibly, but it has the power to transform realities and redefine what we thought was unchangeable. Mark, at the beginning of his journey, was a reflection of many of us, trapped in limited conceptions, but throughout the story, he learns that true power lies in the ability to recognize and adapt to new perspectives. Just like him, we all have the opportunity to break down barriers, challenge our own prejudices, and expand our visions. The lessons of empathy, openness, and change are timeless and continue to be essential for our evolution, both in the professional and personal environment. I hope that, by the end of this story, you have found something that resonates with your own life and that inspires you to look at situations with new eyes. Embracing diversity, the potential of the people around you, and the importance of questioning the norms that often limit us.